Welcome to the Today's Leader podcast. Building tomorrow's best leaders, today.
Way to go, guys. Way to go. Keep it going. Good job, guys. All right, Paul, I see you. All right, finish. Let's go.
Great job, guys.
Hey there, it's Coach Curl here, and welcome to episode 400 of the Today's Leader podcast, Building Tomorrow's Best Leaders Today. We provide proven expert advice and strategies for leaders at all levels striving to get to the next level. Whether it's a career leap or whether it's growth that you want in your business. If you are an emerging and ambitious leader, please check out the Emerging Leaders Masterclass at tomorrowsbestleaders.com. Leverage your potential and prepare now for your next role. Now, every Friday, if your social media feeds are similar to mine, you will often see posts from budding entrepreneurs or leaders aspiring for the concept of inbox zero. The aim, of course, is to have zero emails in their inbox. And in many ways, our emails are becoming a bit of a representation of what our working day looks like. They can become our to-do lists. And in many ways, we see them as a bit of a sign or a representation of how efficient we can be. Yet often this comes at the expense of more pressing priorities. But hey, at least we can post our inbox zero post on a Friday. We might have missed our targets, we might have missed our sales, we might have missed catching up with leads or working on business development. But when we focus on inbox zero, it may actually be detrimental for our business endeavors. I'd like to introduce you to Yaro Starak. Now, Yaro is the co-founder of Inbox Done. It's an email management company with a team of 25 plus serving clients, including restaurant owners, venture capitalists, accountants, doctors, lawyers, the list goes on. Yaro is a serial entrepreneur, and at the moment he's also an angel investor. He's been featured in Forbes, Entrepreneur Magazine, Huffington Post, Founder, Pro Blogger, Social Media Marketing World, Upwork, and hundreds of other media outlets and events. On a personal note, it was also great to be able to speak with someone today who came from the University of Queensland, and his Brisbane family roots are evident during our discussion. He now travels extensively teaching people and helping them become more effective in their entrepreneurial journey. So after a word from our sponsor, Think and Grow Business, please welcome Yaro Starak to the podcast.
The podcast is brought to you by Think and Grow Business, the home of the Think and Grow Business Mastermind. If you're serious about growing your business, get serious and join a mastermind group today. Find out more at thinkandgrowbusiness.com.au.
Welcome, Yaro Starak. How are you, Yaro?
I'm good, Tony. Thanks for having me today.
It's you focus, from what I can see, on productivity and getting stuff done. So share a little bit about the Yaro Starak story.
Yeah, I mean, it's a long one now. You're right. Currently, I've been a co-founder of a company called Inbox Done, and we're all about breaking people free from email by providing executive assistants who specialize in managing and replying to email, as well as all the other executive assistant tasks. But honestly, like we were talking before we hit the record button, I grew up in Brisbane, and I had a business when I was 18 going to the University of Queensland, and then I had another one when I graduated, and then another one in 2005. So I've had an online career, very much being an entrepreneur online most of my adult life. And, you know, thank God for the internet is all I can say, because it's a much better way to start a business. And I'm an extreme introvert too. So having the ability to sit behind a computer, I've spent a lot of hours in cafes. Like, you know, you probably know that the Three Monkeys Cafe in Brisbane was one of my first ever blogging hotspots. So, but today all about helping people break free. And to be honest, even before that, I've been in the blogging space since 2005, and I always focused on businesses, but creating freedom using the vehicle of a business to help generate the cash flow for the kind of freedom you're looking for. So I've always been in the kind of freedom creation space using business, or today providing, executive assistance.
So what drove you to start Inbox Done?
So the funny thing is, it actually ties back to my own experience a long time ago. Like, in fact, just after I graduated from university in Brisbane, I had a company that provided editing services. It was often like thesis and essay editing, academic editing. And I was going for a business that would run without me, but I was stuck in this kind of situation where I had to manage the email. And frankly, the business was run through email. It was all about getting a query, getting a job, sending it to a contract editor, getting it back from the editor, just managing the relationships and doing the delivery of that service. And because of that, I was in the inbox all day long. I always had to be there checking and making sure that I wasn't missing a job or an opportunity or getting back to a customer query very quickly. So I said, listen, if I want to travel, as everyone born in Australia does, I wanted to travel a lot. And I couldn't do that if I had to sort of live my life on email. And I experienced that actually on a trip to Sydney. I was going to an event, and I was on my computer doing email more than I was actually at the event. So I didn't like that. Wow. I came back and I said, got to solve this problem. I wonder if I can delegate my email to another person to do it for me. So no one really talked about delegating email at the time. It was something everyone sort of was used to doing themselves. But I gave it a go. I hired a stay-at-home mom who was a friend of mine from university, trained her on how to do the email role, the customer service role, and then within a month, she had taken over that position. And then I was basically free to almost do whatever I want. That company became a true, as we say today, like a 4-hour work week, thanks to Tim Ferriss kind of business, where it was running, making a full-time income, and I had maybe 2 hours to 4 hours a week of actually doing work on it. Fast forward to the last sort of 5 years ago, I always had in the back of my mind that this is a need all entrepreneurs have. I experienced the simplicity, the clarity, the opening up of the potential of handing over things like this because of that first experience, handing over email. And I realized that today, and certainly 5 years ago as well, entrepreneurs would happily delegate to assistants for, doing their website, or to bookkeepers for doing their bookkeeping, or, graphic designers for doing the graphics. But for some reason, they didn't default to thinking I should hand over email. Yet, if you ask most entrepreneurs and, business owners, people who are management, they will tell you the thing they do the most each day is email. They're in their inbox using it like a to-do list. So I decided to test this idea. It was a theory. I had one of my current inbox assistants as a potential co-founder in mind. Her name was Claire. She was working for me, managing my email. And I said to her, let's see if the system we built for me can be rolled out to other people, other entrepreneurs, other business owners. So we got a few test clients from my own audience, rolled out the service, and it worked. There was a business there. People were happy. People were giving positive feedback. There was a profit margin to be made running the company. So we decided to go all in. And that was 5 years ago. So now we've got like a team of about 40 inbox assistants and a management team of about 6 people, including myself and Claire as co-founders. And the amazing thing to me is the people we help now are all over the place, from used car salesman to a farm owner to a restaurant owner to a venture capitalist, a lawyer, a dentist, accountants. It's just, there's no thread of consistency other than the fact that we all spend too much time on email, and we help them all. So it's been a really fun business to grow.
It's interesting, the concept of running your business through email, because we do see that time and time again. And so that would be, I guess, one of those valid reasons why people do their emails themselves. What are some of the other reasons why you believe that people hold that email chestnut so close to them?
Well, before I answer for me, let me ask you, Tony, do you do your own email?
I do my own email, yes.
Yeah.
And my setup's incredibly complex, and I've got automations now because I've just, even for our podcast interview. So you were one of my last people that booked in under my old booking system. Okay. My new booking system sends all that information out immediately, so I don't have to go back manually and check, has Yaro got all the details for the podcast? And so I've started to automate a lot more, and it's getting a little bit more complex, but I still do all my own email.
Yeah, and you're like most people. So I love that you mentioned software, because that's like a step one, I think, for this. And you combine the power of automation with a human being who's there to reply and manage it all. You can almost hand over all of it. But to answer your question, there's two elements to it. There's the control issue that a lot of entrepreneurs have, where they feel they're the only ones who can do a good enough job of managing and replying to messages. Just that feeling like, this is me and my role. Someone will make a mistake, or they won't do a level of good writing or good sales, that I'll lose a customer or something like that. So there's all those fears. Sometimes it's purely habit. Like I would wake up, turn on my computer, and I'd react to emails as a to-do list, where really you should be waking up and having a very clear to-do list that's based on moving your business forward or whatever your priorities are, not letting other people dictate your to-do list based on when they send you an email. And that's very dangerous, because most emails are not high priority. So it's a risky way to run a business, and obviously it takes up time. And so there's that, breaking the habit. There's the fear of letting go of control. I think those are the main two reasons. Obviously, financial considerations come into it. Like, I wouldn't suggest, and I could not have done it myself until I had enough cash flow coming from what I was doing. Like, you can't, for example, our services, you kind of got to be ready to pay about $2,000, and we're going to $2,000 a month. And we're going to give you two assistants to really build a system, use automation like you're doing, but also they're going to be the ones running it, replying to your emails, as well as other things. So you have to be at the stage in either your business, or maybe you're freelancing or consultant, at the stage where you've got the cash flow to justify it. So for even my own story, I didn't hire that first email assistant until we were doing, at least I think about $4,000 a month in revenue. And I thought, okay, I can justify, to get me free, I can put 2,000, or back then it was less than 2,000. It was an experiment. Then going forward, like, I've had up to 3 people managing my email and customer service on another business, my sort of teaching coaching business. And, that was when that company was doing $20,000 a month in revenue. So I had no problem handing over, $3,000-$4,000 a month to essentially a customer service email management team. They were doing a lot of not just email customer service, but they were extending beyond that and sort of onboarding my new clients and doing some other kind of executive assistant tasks. But I had the cash flow to do that, and it made my business run like a machine. So there's the right time to do it, and then there's the habit breaking part of it. And most of our clients, to be honest, probably, if they're ready financially, the biggest hurdle is just the process of delegation. They have to be ready to say, this is no longer my job. I should be doing creative, visionary, zone of genius, move my business forward tasks, not replying to a basic email that says, how do I download this document? Or, where do how do I, have to update some software, or forward a document to the bookkeeper or something like that. Not very important tasks. So.
Yeah, email is still such an important part of business operations. And interestingly, I met a business owner recently who, when I emailed them, rang me and said, Tony, I don't want to do business via email. I want you to ring me. And this person was busy out in the field all day, every day. And I thought to myself, I'm not sure if that's the best policy for you, being interrupted by phone calls while you're out in the field doing this particular person was in pest control and growing a large business with franchises. So email is still such a relevant and key aspect of each and every business. So one of the things that I think adds to complexity of email now is the proliferation that we get through spam, and the proliferation of spam filters that sometimes will hold back some of those important emails. So with your executive assistants, what sort of system do you have in place in relation to making sure things that fall into spam, or, in the Gmail world, that promotions tab that is just as good as spam? how do they manage that sort of a thing for a business owner?
Yeah, that's a fun question for me to answer, because that's kind of what we bring to the table, this system for managing email. Spam is a very small part of it. Like, we love Gmail or Outlook, any email client that's modern. They have fairly good spam filters, and we love archiving. Like, we love the idea that you can archive and always find something through search. Part of our system, we do bring in external tools. A lot of our clients, we use Yesware with them, which just adds additional functionality around templates and reminders.
Yeah.
But what we do that I think as a broader picture is not just about false positives and spam and things like that. We when you become a client, like for example, you became a client, Tony, during what we call a handover period, which takes a month, maybe two. When we assign you your assistants, one of the very first things we ask you is, we call this triage, prioritization. So in your function or what role you do in your business with your email, what are the important, super critical, you need to know about as soon as they come in emails? It could be an email from an investor, a potential client, your lawyer, whatever you think is the critical thing. So we find that out from you. Then what are like the layer 2 priority aspects? Really important, but maybe you need to know about it once a week in summary, like some kind of summary document, or just put in a folder for you to check once a week, versus probably 80% of your emails, which you really never need to see. It should be taken off your plate completely. So they go in there and they determine triage, and then they start building a system to manage that. So that will include templates for dealing with all the most common situations. That will include documentation. So the template's a starting point, but there may be functions, tasks that need to be performed along with that. So a classic example is, you're a consultant or any kind of business, really, service business, you get a client. More often than not, when someone joins, there's a whole onboarding process that needs to happen. Updating a CRM software, creating the invoice, telling the project manager, new clients here, you've got to start doing the onboarding with them. So our executive assistant will, first of all, handle the email. So it might need a reply that's a welcome message. Here's what's going to happen next. Here's what to expect. Then they'll update the CRM software, maybe create some tasks for other members of your team if needed. If there's like a financial aspect, they'll make sure the invoice goes to the bookkeeper, or maybe the bookkeeper's told to invoice the client, however your billing works. And all those kind of processes triggers. So we document that, systematize it, and perform it for you. So it's kind of like creating a machine that runs not just your email, but almost your entire business in some ways. Obviously, you still have to deliver the service of the product, but all the functions around that, your assistant does it. So, and spam is just a small part of that, really. It's about creating the system on top of whatever tool you use, whether it's Gmail or Outlook or another email account. And that's, I think, the best thing about this is, people try to hire virtual assistants to solve a problem, but more often than not, the virtual assistant enters your company and then they ask you, so what do you want me to do? And we're the other way around. We enter your company knowing already exactly what to do. We start rolling out our system, and then we just ask you some questions to fill in the gaps, to try and, learn about you, what we can't know from studying what you already do. But we're rolling out our system. We're not guessing here. We're not waiting for you to train us what to do. We're implementing it. So I'm very proud of that, because that's very much what my team and Claire, my co-founder, have built.
And virtual assistants nowadays is just such a growing industry, and people are always being told to get a VA, or being hit up on LinkedIn that someone's doing VA services and you need to do them. So I like the idea. And then people bring the VA into their business and fundamentally don't know what to do with them sometimes, because of that real attachment to that chestnut of what we call email. Now, this isn't your first business. You're what I would call maybe a serial entrepreneur. So when you're working and seeing and looking at the entrepreneurial space, what are some of the roadblocks that you see with young startups or entrepreneurs when it comes to delivering growth? So anyone can start a business, but there's a fundamental difference between someone that can start a business and then someone that can look at the growth, whether it's first stage, second stage, or whatever stage growth. What are some of the roadblocks that you see in young entrepreneurs?
It's such a compelling part of business because we all always want to know, how do we get more customers? How do we get more traffic? How do we get more audience? It's like, it's still the most exciting thing to me. How do I get more customers? And each stage, like you said, is different. So I've had, let's say, 4 main businesses in the last 20 years, and each one of them has been faster and bigger than the previous one. It's very much like a building blocks process. So my first one, I was 19, building a website, not really knowing what to do. And even in that experience, I focused on creating content. That's what I knew how to do. I was falling in love with the internet, so I was learning how to produce articles. And that worked because it was the early days of the internet, and I was able to attract an audience. It wasn't a big audience. It was a niche card game business called Magic the Gathering, and I sold some cards and had a trading forum. Very small business. I made maybe $500 a month, side hustle, you'd call that today. The second business was my essay editing company. And then that was different. I wanted to, with the audience and customer growth side of it, I hated the fact with my previous business that it was such a small audience. So if there's step one piece of advice in terms of a failure point for a business with getting customers and growth, it's choosing a market that actually has a large enough pool of customers to sustain growth, which was probably my first failure. And to be honest, it nowadays, the game has grown. So if I started that business today, there might be a large enough audience. But, I was in Brisbane. I was very focused on a small niche audience, and it was a tough one to grow. So with that second business, I'm like, all right, bigger audience. I want a bigger profit margin. And thankfully, things like Google were becoming popular. So it was possible to access the entire world through search. So your content can go further. In that case, though, my next stumbling block was realizing that if you go after a bigger audience, you also face more competition. You face a longer sales cycle. So as an entrepreneur, you have to realize you can't just simply decide, well, I'm going to go after the entire world with a generic product, because first of all, no one will choose you because, people choose niche specialized companies, but you can't niche down too much so that there's no audience. You have to find that kind of sweet spot where there's a large growing audience, competition that you can position yourself against, and then you can continue to grow. So that part of my career, and I think this is probably the most important advice I can give about growth, is really getting your positioning right in a growing market. Even today with Inbox Done, we're in the virtual assistant space, super crowded. There's so many. You can go to Upwork, you can go to Fiverr, you can go to all these agencies that offer virtual assistant services, and the prices are from $5 an hour to $5,000 a month, depending on whether you're hiring full time and which country you're hiring from. So entering that kind of space, I, from day one, said we're a specialty service. We focus on email. We have we cost more. We're not a $5 an hour service, and we're going after a clientele that already has enough money to justify, $2,000 a month, and they can see the ROI, the return on investment from doing that. But to make that work, we had to position ourselves and highlight these things that do make us different, so that when someone's comparing inboxdone.com versus these other options, we stand out for that particular need as the superior solution. So that, to me, positioning, differentiation, how you present that message, super important to any business, especially if you're in a crowded marketplace, which, let's face it, most today, especially online, it's super crowded, no matter what niche you're going after. So you need to get that very clear.
Absolutely. I can certainly attest to that. Every year I see new figures in the coaching and consulting game, and everyone keeps talking about the growth factor that's still there. And all we're seeing is more and more people coming into that. So, and it's a very crowded space, and you've really got to differentiate. You've really got to let people know the difference of what they're going to get. Very quickly, I guess, you've moved sort of from a solo entrepreneur, and now you build teams. How have you made that transition, and what are some of those key tips that you would give to, entrepreneurs maybe in the same space that are now needing to build a team? What are some of the factors that have helped you in your ability to build a good team around you?
I learned through failing multiple times that I wasn't very good at hiring and building teams. So I was fully aware that if I wanted a bigger business, you need to bring on talented people. Thankfully, for a long part of my career, when I was a blogging coach, consultant, teacher, basically selling online training, that's a very elegant business model. You can do a lot with a very small team. You can make $1 million a year and have maybe 6 people working with you, none of them full time. And that's beautiful. Now, with my current business, and certainly what I'm thinking in the future, you just can't scale without scaling a team along with it. And that's probably true for most businesses. Even with my coaching business, once I wanted to go beyond that kind of number, there's no way I could have done it with that team. I would have needed to hire more people and get good at that. So I realized, still from before the current business, when I was running my coaching business, I did start to go, let's hire someone here, let's hire someone there, and I kept failing at it. I brought on a person. They did, they didn't show up, or they needed more hand holding than I could give them. They didn't have the skill set, motivation, all those problems, and it happened multiple times. So I realized, okay. The problem here is not the world, it's me. I'm the one who's failing at this, and I'm the one who's the cause of the failure. It's not just me getting bad luck or finding the wrong people. So I made probably the smartest choice I ever could make, which was to focus on hiring just one person, a person to do the hiring for me. So when I could focus on that, they became the hirer. Now, when I hired them, I said, listen, I don't have a good system for this yet. So I'm not just hiring you to do the hiring. I'm hiring you to build a system for hiring as well. So we're going to build a process, like, take simple example. Let's build a better jobs page that really highlights what we're offering, and, almost like a sales page for potential staff, to get them excited to join the company and their potential growth within the company. And then just the usual things like, what kind of testing and vetting process do we go through? Because frankly, I wanted to, at the time, be the writer, content creator. I didn't want to do interviews. I didn't want to check questionnaires about potential hires. It just didn't excite me. So that's why I was kind of failing at that role. So when I started Inbox Done, it's actually the company exists almost because I failed at hiring, because we are a hiring and vetting and testing and training company. To make that work, though, my co-founder, Claire, she's the one who brought that skill set in. She's a great systems person. She's a great hiring manager. And then she's built a team around her of people who now take over those functions. So she has a hiring manager. She has a person who manages the training and onboarding of our team members as well. I'm in marketing, which is really my strength. I spend my time positioning and going on podcasts and talking about what we do, and writing content to reach new audiences and hopefully find clients. So that combination of a good operations person with a good marketing person has worked really well for us. And that's allowed me to do what you said, which is build a company that's actually got a team of, like, we're almost 50 people now, all up and said. So that's been a change. I honestly, no way I could have done that without a co-founder either for this particular business model. If I was building software, I'd probably be saying to you, I needed to find amazing engineers. So I would do the same story. I'd hire a great engineer person to help me build the engineering team, and go from there.
It's good that the experience, and you're willing to share your experiences along the journey and really help others. So as part of your journey, who's inspired you?
There's been a lot of people over the years, mostly through books. Books have been the biggest source of inspiration for me, because I love reading biographies of companies and founders and hearing where were they from day zero. I can remember, like, I read Richard Branson's first book, I think, Losing My Virginity, in Brisbane, actually, when I was a teenager. I remember reading it in cafes and going, he just made, it gave me the sense of the kind of personality and the kind of energy and the kind of motivation that such a creative entrepreneur had, and where he started and how he, grew a magazine business, then a record shop, and then an airline, and so on and so forth. After that, though, I actually started reading books about just your everyday technical founder. It wasn't always like, I read the big books, like the founding of eBay, the founding of Google, of Amazon, of Facebook, all these massive stories. I still love reading those. Looking on my shelf right now, I've got the story of Spotify, and I just recently finished that. Great book and interesting founder. But I also read, the little $5 million company that someone started, like a small blogger, like a mummy blogger, started a blog when she was a mom, and how she grew that, or how a SaaS software startup, and they grew to $1 million a year in revenue. So those kind of stories really motivated me because I heard the steps from how did they build the first version? How did they get their first customer? What took them from one customer to 10 to 100 and so on. So, and in fact, today I do a bit of angel investing, and I see behind the scenes of some companies as they're growing. And it's so interesting just to hear them say, we're getting great results with Google Ads. We're getting great results with influencer marketing. Oh, we had to completely change our positioning, and that helped us double our business because now we focus on this client type and not on this client type. So I learn a lot from just other entrepreneurs even today. And actually, today, probably doing podcasts is one of the, not just as a guest, but as a host. I'm sure you know what this is like. But just having the opportunity to talk to someone who's built or building a business or several, and you get to ask them, how did you get your first client? And, and what are you working on now? And how did you scale from 1,000 to 10,000? Those are all amazing questions that you can get an answer to.
Yeah, but if anyone's out there thinking of starting a podcast, my recommendation, even though it's an incredibly crowded space, is do it, because to speak with the quality of people that I speak with on the podcast, yourself included, is just amazing. And you don't get access to that in just in most business networks. You might have 2 or 3 really inspirational, successful people that you can learn from, but it's just phenomenal. It's one of the things I really enjoy doing.
Yeah, so, it inspires you too. I think that's really the thing that, like, if I'm feeling down, sometimes just listening to a podcast or doing an interview, I'll get fired up again. Let's go build my business bigger,
Yeah, and it keeps you up to date. I mean, there are so many things that I hear, and no doubt you hear in your podcast, that you think, oh, I hadn't thought of that. That's something new. That's a new way to look at it. And then you start diving into the old rabbit hole and doing some research and say, how can I benefit from knowing that? How can I use that with my clients?
And your competition too. This is what blows my mind. I've listened to interviews with the founders of all the main competitors for my current company. And it's just such a huge insight into, what they did and what industries they tap into and how they position their companies. So that's just free content. It's amazing.
It is. You mentioned failure a little bit. How would you describe your relationship with failure?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mixed. I definitely understand the benefit of it. My positive side, my practical, logical brain is like, there's no such thing as failure. It's just learning what doesn't work to figure out what does work. And I preach this to anyone, like my coaching students. I say this too, it's not a failure. It's an experiment that you haven't got the positive outcome from yet. I say that also knowing that, when I was 21 to 25, very early days of my entrepreneurial career, you're so much more emotionally unstable and vulnerable around your success because you just haven't had that much success yet. So you're kind of building your self-esteem all at the same time. So you need those few wins in order to be able to have the strength to deal with the failures. So I definitely dealt with the fear of failure, maybe not even the failure itself, but the potential for failure a lot worse when I was younger. Today, honestly, failure, I don't even think about it. Like, I still might get a little upset when something's not trending in the right direction, and it happens for a long time, and like, what's going wrong? But often I look at that as not a failure. It's just a motivation aspect of like, why am I not enjoying this enough to continue putting in the effort to get past this failure and take the next step? And more often than not, it's because I'm not excited about something in the process that I have to do in order to get over this. Where in the past it was more like, oh my God, I'll never I never succeed. A client canceled, just like, oh, it's the end of the world. This business is going down. I just spiral into these pits of negativity. So I've definitely matured a bit on that since then.
And those pits of negativity and that fear of failure is often what people stops them from trying something or taking that risk. You've got to have a nice risk culture, a calculated risk culture. We don't want people thinking they've got to be bold and take unsubstantiated risks and then lose everything and say, well, I did what everyone said, I've got to take a risk. It's got to be calculated. And, I'm always reminded, I'm a rugby league supporter for way back and coached rugby league pretty much all my life. And I'm always reminded that if you're going to make a mistake, you do it at full pace, which means you're committing. So if you're going to drop the ball, don't drop it in a half-hearted action. you're running into a gap, you're at full pace, and that's the way you make a mistake. And sometimes I think it's very similar to business. Don't make a mistake because you're being half-hearted or you're standing back. Make a mistake because you're actually having a crack. And then you're in a much better position to learn from it, and be able to take those learnings and what some people would call the blessings of failure. No one I know loves failing, but we need to be able to learn from failure. Yeah. So, Yaro, the vision for yourself, what does that look like?
Honestly, I always remind myself to, like, it's a battle, right? You're thinking about the future and the things you want to achieve, but you have to make sure you're enjoying what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. And I tend to remind myself that, like, I focus on the future a lot, and like, we want to get to this size. Oh, I want to test this idea. And I know execution is not always quick. So, you need to bring resources together. So I have to temper my expectations on timeframes and then get excited about what we're working towards. But ultimately, it's a day-by-day activity that has to excite you. Like, I have to enjoy talking to you on this podcast, or why am I trying to grow this business? And I love the thrill of getting a new client. And I love the thrill of seeing an idea basically work. That's amazing. I love making money. Don't get me wrong. Something amazing about, like, I think being rich is an aspiration that we all should have and hopefully achieve, because it's great. It's simple as that. It's a better way to live. So, that's all tied in. It's the intrinsic rewards and the very financial clear rewards too of business. So my vision is bigger financial goals, more impact with people, but at the same time, really grounding on the fact that I'm enjoying building my current company. I'm enjoying that sometimes it doesn't sound glamorous, but I'm working on a piece of content that's just going to be one niche piece of content to go after, a little keyword phrase that people search for on Google, and hopefully will rank and show up, and we'll get a few more audience members and maybe a few more customers. So, and that's every day. Like, that's really the work you're doing every day, is these small little changes or these little experiences. So to me, the vision is, hopefully I always enjoy those steps, and then the grander destination, that's the part where you get to play and dream big and see where you're going. So, for example, I don't see Inbox Done as the rest of my life. I want to play in software. I love angel investing because it's just so fun to see other companies grow. I love Web3 right now, and where things are going with decentralization and blockchain and cryptocurrency, and where that will impact the creator economy, which is a space I've worked in for a lot. So I especially love it when you can kind of merge your interests, where, I coach entrepreneurs, and here's my company that provides executive assistance, so you can connect your clients with another company. And it's all good. It's all fun, honestly. And the best thing is, you can do it all from wherever you want. You can sit in your laptop and, be in the beach, or be Iceland or Hawaii. I like those two contrasts,
So you've been able to manage bringing your love of travel into your business.
Oh yeah. I mean, from day one, honestly, I was building a lifestyle business more than a $1 billion outcome business. I wanted to build, that's why I teach and deliver systems now. It's because, I did it. I wanted to have a machine business that runs itself so I could travel. I've done several, like a whole year, for example, in 2008, traveling around the world, living in Europe and Asia and Middle East. And the whole time I was writing a blog, running my podcast, selling my teaching products back then. More recently, I've spent some time in the States. I live in Canada, visiting Europe, going to Hawaii. And the whole time I'm always running this business, guiding my team. And it's built for that. And I think that's what the internet has really enabled us to do. I got a little bit worried when I decided I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I thought that's how you get rich. That's the thing I noticed. People are either an entrepreneur or they were in property somehow, and that's the most wealthy people. But I noticed a lot of the entrepreneurs were working harder than people who had jobs. They were spending 12-hour days just trying to make a business work, and they had no other option because there was no like boss or they were the boss. They had, if they got sick, they had to keep working because there's no such thing as sick leave for an entrepreneur. So I was also worried about that. I didn't want to create a a job as a business. I wanted a business that would run by itself. So you have to choose the right business model. You have to build the right systems. You have to delegate. That's why companies like mine, Inbox Done, exists. So you can delegate to other people and build a machine. So that's how it's been important to me.
And that's going to be an inspiration to so many, Yaro. So how can some people connect with you?
So if you do want an executive assistant, inboxdone.com and book a discovery call. You'd actually be speaking to me as we are recording this. I'm doing the discovery calls. We can learn about what you're dealing with in email or any other issues that you might need help to delegate to an assistant to. That's probably the best place. And you can obviously send an email to yaro@inboxdone.com as well if you have any questions or comments.
Awesome, and I'll have those links in the show notes. So, Yaro, it's been a wonderful speaking with you today, and thank you for sharing your insights with today's leaders.
Thank you for having me. It's been a fun conversation.
And now, it's time for Tony's 2 cents.
Yaro was very accommodating with his learnings from his entrepreneurial and business journey. And the part that I'd love to add value today is the acknowledgement of when he spoke about his attempts at recruiting the right people. He acknowledged that it wasn't his strength. It wasn't something that he was very good at. Now, fundamentally, we all have our weaknesses. We all have these things that we're not so good at. And so in actuality, the acknowledgement of the weakness of recruitment is probably irrelevant to the discussion when it comes to acknowledging our weaknesses. What it is, however, it's important that we recognize our weaknesses and plan on how best we can still deliver that process. If it's something that we're not good at, it still needs to get done. So how do you ensure as a leader that the weakness that you have doesn't have negative impacts on your team, your organization, your outcomes, your results, the ones that you're driving to achieve? This can be done in many ways. We can train ourselves, we can focus on it, or we can recruit people that complement the skills that we have, that maybe have the skills that we need to have. In other words, we hire people to help us with our weaknesses, to complement the skills and to drive the business and the growth that we need to have as leaders. So no leader is perfect, but the ones that believe that they are usually the ones that won't get the outcomes that they need. That's my 2 cents. Thanks again, Yaro, for your investment in today's leaders. And once again, all of Yaro's links are in the show notes. If you're looking to build better leadership skills, check out the Today's Leader website at todaysleader.com.au. We really are driving a leadership revolution to build tomorrow's best leaders today. Today's Leader is a collective, the mindset to make a difference, the ability to create an impact. Think and Grow Business hosts our Today's Leader Mastermind. Think and Grow Business, where we focus on personal, professional, and business growth. Book your free 30-minute discovery call right from the homepage at thinkandgrowbusiness.com.au. Don't forget, wherever you are standing stronger, braver, and wiser. Don't forget the golden rule. Don't be an arsehole. I'll see you all again next week. Bye for now.